welcome back to another episode of AddiBiotics Chat Over Coffee. This week we're interviewing Aikido Master Sensei Ken Robson. We're going to know how Sensei Robson got into martial arts, the love he developed for it, and what martial arts teaches you overall in general. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee and enjoy this interview. And you know the drill by now. Don't forget to click subscribe, turn on notifications because we have a few videos coming your way, including food vlogs.
Good to be here.
The pleasure is all ours, Sensei. You've been doing a great thing for the martial arts community for so many years. The school, Shudokan, is absolutely brilliant. I remember learning a few lessons of Aikido there myself. I remember when the second time we're actually interviewing each other, where I remember when I was a local radio presenter here in Nottingham, and I called the studio up and asked you to come inside. And it was one of the best interviews I had the opportunity of having. You were one of the best guests I ever had the opportunity of interviewing as well. And again, lightning striking twice. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Sensei. Thank you very much.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So normally, Sensei, what I like to do first with all my guests and on my show is basically I like to say congratulations for all your accomplishments in the martial arts world. Also, I remember you mentioning before we came on air once, you're doing a lot of rescuing German Shepherds. You've been teaching martial arts for so many years, and like you just never stop moving, which is a great thing. And also congratulations on your recent retirement as well.
Thank you. Great job, retirement.
Yeah, make your own hours. Don't need to worry about I don't need to be here at this time.
I'm busier than I've ever been before, which is not a bad thing.
Which is good, yeah, definitely. But it's good to be your own boss, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just make your
yeah.
Definitely. So Sensei, obviously I know you're very well trained in the martial art of Aikido. Obviously what I'd like to also know is what is your overall martial arts background? How did you start it and everything?
Well, in the early 70s, like most people of my age who kind of fell into martial arts, Bruce Lee was a big influence. And then TV shows came along like Kung Fu, and I think there was one called Monkey or something. And that really inspired me. I came from a small town or small village near a town called Consett in the northeast, County Durham. And at the time, there was really nothing around for me to engage with. Eventually, the school that I was at opened a judo club, so I started with judo. It didn't really tick the Bruce Lee box for me because I wasn't leaping in the air and things like that. But shortly after, in the town of Consett, they at the sports centre, they opened a karate club, and this was run by a man called Gordon Ward. So I joined his club. I trained every day that I could. I never missed. Really enjoyed it. Eventually, Gordon introduced me to his teacher, Walter Seaton, and I gained my black belt in Wadaru Karate just before I left home to join the Royal Air Force. I joined the Air Force to become a pilot, and as such, I spent a lot of time traveling around, especially in the early years, doing training courses, things like that. And so in the 1977, I went to RAF Linton, basic flying training, and that's where I started to teach karate. It's the only way I could stay involved with it, really, because there wasn't any karate around. So I thought the only way is I'll have to teach it. I moved around a lot. I ended up at Royal Air Force Witten in 1984. And I got to the point where I was teaching, but I was not really learning from anyone. So I thought it was time to look for a change. So I came across Laogar Kung Fu and a man called Alex Barrowman, who was a great sparrer. I remember sparring with him. And I really enjoyed the Laogar. Unfortunately, I was to move on again before I could get anywhere kind of significant with that. And I ended up in 1986 at RAF Chibnall, which is where I met a man called Sensei Eddie Stratton, and he taught Aikido. I looked at Aikido. I wasn't enamored by it, really. There was a big difference between karate, Kung Fu, and Aikido, and I wasn't sure if this was for me. But I did recognize in Sensei Stratton I did recognize something. This was a man that I just had to learn from. I had to be around this person. And so I thought, well, let's do it. So for the first 6 months or so, it was laborious. I wasn't really enjoying it as much as I was the Kung Fu. But after 6 months, it kind of got hold of me. And that's been my art ever since, if you like. So in brief, that's my kind of history in martial arts.
Definitely, that was amazing. So you have been a lifelong martial artist.
Yeah.
Overall, that's great though. Again, like I say, and I know I say that a lot because I used to bow to my sensei himself, and I used to learn Shotokan karate. So whenever even when we were in the gym, there's a lot of big guys around, and like they're lifting weights, screaming, and grunting, but we would just still have that same admiration and respect for each other, where we'd always bow down and say we'll to each other. But that's good that you went from different forms of martial arts as well, because sometimes if some people would just find one martial art and that's it, I'm going to stick with this, I'm going to be the stand-up striker. But nowadays it's completely evolved, hasn't it? It's become what's known as MMA, mixed martial arts. You have to learn how to stand up, you have to learn how to grapple, you need to have a ground game as well. But obviously yourself, you immediately got captured by Aikido right away. It took a little while, but eventually you got there. I first got introduced to Aikido, obviously growing up in the late 80s and the early 90s. And I have to admit, the one person who introduced me to Aikido was Steven Seagal, because I had never seen anything like that before. Like growing up, I watched a few Bruce Lee movies, I watched a few Van Damme movies, I watched obviously Chuck Norris, but I had never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
See that. I even got my fellow podcaster Aiden to watch his first ever movie, and he goes, "That's a real martial art." First of all, as soon as he said it, he didn't say I liked the movie. He goes, "I liked the martial art of Aikido." I said, "What a coincidence!" So right, well, let's go learn it together eventually. So hopefully we'll come down to Shudokan, a group of us, and we're going to learn some Aikido.
Yeah, look forward to that.
You'll throwing me and him around definitely at the same time.
We'll have fun. Whatever happens, we'll have fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because like I said, I remember when I first came to you, and you were very kind, you were very humble. Not much has changed ever since as well. Everybody there was very kind, very humble, very welcoming, because it's the kind of environment you want to be in martial arts, where you welcome it, because it's one of those little calling signs that makes you want to go back. So, oh, they're such nice people, let's keep going. We're learning something. You're not just learning martial arts and self-defense, you're learning humility, you're learning humanity, you're learning decency all in one. That's a great thing to have as a martial artist, where you're not having the egotism where like, oh yeah, I'm a black belt, I'm this, I can do this, that, and the other to you and everything. But it's nice to know that you're learning something where you're good at something, but there's no point in needing to go around and announcing it to other people, is it?
Well, I've been in lots of different places all over the world, from Australia to the United States. I've trained in lots of different martial arts, not necessarily for long term, but just I've turned up to a dojo and said, "Do you mind if I train?" And I've seen everything from the elitist environment where there's one apex student that everyone aspires to be. I've been to places where it's frowned upon to talk directly to the instructor. I've been to places that you don't really feel so comfortable. I've had a few knocks. I've been to places that people like to exercise their ego, if you like, and it's the fresh meat on the mat. And they take the pounding. I've been there. I've done that. But equally, I've been to places that are very warm, very welcoming, places that are fun, places where you feel safe and you can learn in a safe environment. I've done the whole spectrum. For me, my Aikido has changed massively over the years. Back in the day at RAF Linton on Ouse, RAF Leeming, our classes were 3 hours long. It was pretty tough. The emphasis was on strength, on power, on speed. And if you couldn't hack a 3-hour lesson that was full on, obviously you weren't right. Aikido wasn't for you. But that's really not the way forward. My Aikido has changed a lot because, I realized that for me, school wasn't enough to help me achieve the ambitions that I really set myself for, the goals that I set. I didn't excel at school. I didn't really enjoy school, to be fair. But I ended up in a great career in the Royal Air Force, flying aeroplanes. And without my experiences in martial arts, without the mental conditioning, that would never have happened without my martial arts training. So when I decided it was time to do this professionally, or even as a business, if you like, I thought, the way forward is we have to find a way to make Aikido more inclusive, to make sure the emphasis is on helping people, give people the tools to live their life in a better way. The world's full of negativity. They don't do life skills at school anymore.
No, yeah.
No,
Well, I think that did.
that's what schools get judged on. What academic results have you achieved? And so the important thing of life skills is left out. And so I wanted that to be my focus when I teach Aikido at the school that I had.